Here we have a first generation Honda Ridgeline. We're going to be doing the rear brakes on this, so I'm going to go ahead and jack it up, get the tires off, and we will jump into the job. Before we get going, I'll go over some tools that you're going to want and maybe some accessories or chemicals. So we're going to be using some brake cleaner. To get the wheels off, you're going to want a 22 millimeter. This is a 12 millimeter here, top and bottom here. And then in behind, once we get the caliper out of the way, you'll see the 17 millimeter bolts that hold the caliper bracket. And then here on the front, the screw right here, we're going to want, that's a number 3 Phillips, or I'm going to be using this impact screwdriver. And we'll see how that works here shortly. Another thing you can see is I've got a tub here to catch anything that's going to drop off here when I spray it with brake clean. We've also got some brake caliper grease, brake and caliper grease. I'm going to go ahead and try to pry this to get the piston to push in a little bit. And so I'm just easily prying on this. And if it's moving this easy, I'm just going to go ahead and get it compressed all the way. That way we don't have to use another tool to compress the piston. Alright, at this point we can take out the caliper bolts. Again, that was a 12 millimeter. And these shouldn't be too terribly tight. The torque value on these is actually 16 foot-pounds. Like I mentioned before, if this is wanting to spin, you can use the 17 millimeter wrench to hold that. As you can see, this bolt is hitting on the hose. I'm not going to maneuver the hose any more than I have to, just in case it's brittle. Now we can remove these 17 millimeter bolts holding the caliper bracket on. Okay, there we go. Alright, so these pads, I'm gonna guess that there's a lot of rust buildup in behind these shims. So I'll knock these pads out, and you can see we're definitely ready on this side for new brake pads. To get these old shims out, you can just push up on them. And here you can see all this is buildup of rust. There's a ton of rust on here. This is all rusty. So I'm going to take a file and I'm going to file this. I'm going to knock off some of this I'll also wire wheel this, but you know, when we're in this area here, the wire wheel is just going to shine up that rusty metal, and we want to remove it and make it a nice flat spot for the shims to rest in again. So you can see it looks a little bit better now. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and pull these slides out and make sure that, well, we'll clean the old grease off, put some new grease on. I typically do them one at a time, just so that if there's a difference between the top and the bottom, I don't get them mixed up. So now, we got the grease off of it. I'm going to put a coating of grease on. And it's important to make sure you don't put a bunch of grease on the tip here, because when it goes into this cylinder here, if there's grease in behind it, it can lock up, based on some information I got from YouTube. I think while we're at it, we'll go ahead and get this caliper loaded and ready for when we get the rotor removed. We can just put it all together. So when we took the shims out of here and we took the brake pads out, you could tell that there was some buildup because of how difficult it was to remove those pads. So what we're going to do is take some of this grease, the same brake grease that we just used, and we're going to coat this bare metal and hopefully what this will do is create a barrier to keep it from rusting as bad as it did between the last brake change. Okay, so now we've got a new shim, and as you look at this, you can see one side is wider than the other. So we're going to look, and you can see that this side is shorter, and so this will go on just like that. Other one, you can see the same thing, shorter out here. Make sure those seat well. And we're also going to put just a little bit of grease right here on this ear, just to make it slide easier and maybe be a little quieter. You don't have to put a bunch on there. This one will go toward the outside. And while you're doing this, just try not to get any grease on the face of the brake pad, otherwise it'll want to slip on your new rotor and not stop. Here we'll load this side, and this is the inside, and we want these, this one has the squealer on it, and you want that toward the inside of the car. Alright, so we got that one started. Now we can change the rotor. We do want to take this little rubber pad out. This is to get to the adjuster for the brake pads, the emergency brake. This will go in the new rotor. And here, first we'll see if this is loose enough to get it out of here. Okay, so it's kind of tight. So I'm going to use this little hammer here and this, and we're going to get it to turn. So it wasn't too tight. Now, I doubt the rotor's just going to fall off. A couple things we can do. Sometimes a little light tapping around it will help it come off, and then sometimes a couple big whacks right here and turn and take off. So we'll try the easy way. Okay, so that was easy. So this actually looks pretty decent. I'm still going to go ahead and put a little grease here just to hopefully keep it from rusting up. Okay, I'm going to go grab the rotor. Most of the time when you get a rotor, it's going to have grease on it from shipping. Now this is a coated rotor that has a coating on it already to keep it from rusting, or at least to help prevent it from rusting. So we don't need to do that here. Now I'm going to reinstall the number 3 Phillips. I don't want to really run it on there too much. What this screw does, just kind of holds the rotor in place while we get the rest of this put back together. So we'll start with putting the caliper bracket back in. On, in, on. Alright, so at this point I want to show you something. You could see how tight this ratchet is here. Well, my torque wrench is bigger. This is set to 80 foot-pounds. It's a 1/2 inch ratchet, but you can probably see there I can't get on there very well. I can get on this top one, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to torque this one, and that bottom one I'm going to try to feel about the same, and that's the best I can do because I can't get in there with anything else. So for your information, it is 80 foot-pounds for these 17 millimeter caliper bracket bolts. Alright, so we're just about ready to put the caliper back on, but we gotta close this gap. Now we can reinstall the caliper onto the bracket. All right, and the torque on these bolts is 16 foot-pounds. Just like the bottom, you know, I can't get on this one, but I know I just tightened that at least 16 foot-pounds. We're gonna go ahead and get that bottom one torqued. You can see that wasn't a lot of force. So at this point, this side's done. I'm gonna do the other side. If I run into anything different over there, I'll let you know. I need to put this plug back in. These can be a little tricky. Just gonna get one side started and then kind of push. There we go. Anything that I used in this video, I'll put a link in the description below, including a disc brake kit to put to push that piston back in. One other thing I want to tell you before I go any further, you can see, you know, this is loose. There's no pressure from the line onto the brake pads. So the first thing you want to do once you get these brakes done is hop in, start the car, and pump the brakes several times until you feel the brake get firm, or the brake pedal get firm again. If I encounter any other issues on the other side that you should know about, I'll let you know.